1 hectare, and they will say that this is nature-based solution. So what I would like to do is that quickly introduce you to what IUCN is, the definition of nature-based solution, and how we are trying to apply it at a scale, working in a Barak River basin, and some examples of nature-based solution which are very well established. So what is IUCN? IUCN is a union of organization. We were founded in 1948, and we have a triple helical structure, we say, with members which are like individual experts. Members are like institutions, commissions, and secretariat. So I belong to the secretariat. So we have more than 1,400 member organizations as a part of the union. Even the Ministry of Environment and Forest in India is our state member. But we also have Wildlife Institute of India and many other organizations, even BNHS as IUCN member. We have 6 commissions. So these commissions are individuals, experts who become member of IUCN. So more than 15,000 experts in Commission on Ecosystem Management, Species Survival Commissions, and others. Secretariat in more than 50 countries. And we have been working since 1948, as I said, and we have been part of the drafting of various conventions, including the Convention on Biodiversity, which was adopted in 1992 after the Earth Summit, also the Ramsar Convention, and working as advisory board to UNCCB and CITES and others. So actually Ramsar Convention headquarters sits in the IUCN headquarters in Gland in Geneva. We are also accredited as a GCF agency, which is like a funding mechanism for the developing countries to contribute to biodiversity conservation and climate change action. And IUCN is the only environmental organization globally which has observer status in the UN General Assembly. So these are the commissions, and I really invite you. Maybe a lot of some of you are here who are part of the commissions, but we have these 7 commissions now. The Climate Crisis Commission now is called Climate Action Commission, which was recently added to the thing. So what IUCN has to offer, one of the most important work of IUCN is about documentation of scientific knowledge and bridging the gap between the science, policy, and practice. And Red List of a Species is one very good example, which is a global database of a species managed by IUCN, and it is one of the most referred species database globally. We also work on capacity building on nature-based solutions. So IUCN in 2020 came up with the first global standard for nature-based solution, and now we are implementing a lot of projects and also providing funding through windows like EBA, Global EBA Fund, jointly managed by IUCN and UNEP. We support a lot of, like my work personally, I work in the area of SDG 6.5, which is about implementation of IWRM in all river basins, including shared river basins like Ganges, Brahmaputra, Meghna by 2030. Supporting the implementation of the Ramsar Convention. So as I say, IUCN is one of the international organization partner for the Ramsar Convention, and we are also supporting the establishment of the regional Ramsar initiative, which is seen as one of the good mechanisms for learning exchange and implementation of wetland strategies, and then mobilization of the resources. So that we have a mandate to support the government and stakeholders in mobilization of resources through GCF funding. One of the big projects in the Nepal, which is currently running, is ecosystem-based adaptation in the Gandaki River Basin in Nepal. And now we are also trying to extend our work in the Bihar side. So last month only I was in the Gandak River Basin in Bihar side to understand, what are the issues and, how IUCN can contribute positively. So now coming to the issue of why wetlands matter, I think a lot has been discussed, so I won't be going into the details, but the thing is that wetlands provides a variety of ecosystem services. I have been hearing since yesterday a lot of focus on the role of wetland in cleaning the water. But actually, if you look at this wetland as an ecosystem, they provide multiple benefits. And some estimates suggest that 40% of the global plant and animal species actually depends directly on the wetland, and 1/6 or 1 billion people depend on the wetland for different kind of things like water, livelihoods, etc. So this is one of the Ramsar infographic. So if you look at the Ramsar strategic plan, which connects the wetland with all the different sustainable development goals. And if you look at the goal on the climate action, there is one data which I would like to emphasize here. Peatland, I don't know if you have heard about peatlands. This is one of the type of wetlands which only cover 3% of the global land, but it stores twice as much carbon as the forest of the world put together. So this actually highlights the value of wetland in mitigating the climate change. But the challenge here is that, I mean, if you look at a country like India, we don't have a nationally or policy level adapted methodology for estimating carbon in the wetlands. And that is one of the reasons why wetland is not even reflected in our NDCs. What we see is that only the focus is on the forest, that we have to mitigate this much of the carbon through the forest restoration. But what about wetlands, which are like much more efficient in sequestering the carbon? So there is clearly an increasing recognition of wetland and nature-based solution, and that's what I would like to emphasize. And here is a quote that you see from our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which actually emphasizes on the multiple benefits that the wetlands provide. So wetlands are very important for the existence of our Earth because many birds and animals depend on them, along with enriching biodiversity. They also ensure food, flood control, and groundwater recharge. So this one statement talks about so many different functionalities of wetlands, and we see that recognition in the Amrit Sarovar and other program. And recently, ADB has been funding Assam government to actually use or revive the wetland for their fish production value or for the flood management values. So now the question of how we define nature-based solutions. So how many of you have actually looked at the definition, the technical or the multilaterally accepted definitions of nature-based solution? So actually till 2022, when there was a UN Environment Assembly, there was no multilaterally agreed definition. There was only one definition which IUCN World Conservation Congress adopted in 2016. And actually that definition gave a basis for the acceptance of the multilaterally agreed definition of nature-based solution. So how is it defined? So nature-based solutions are actions to protect and sustainably manage the ecosystem, which are modified ecosystem or natural ecosystem. The first thing is nature-based solution is not about creating a new type of ecosystem. So frankly, when we talk about sometimes converting a desert into the green oasis, is that nature-based solution? No, because you are converting the character of the ecosystem. This ecosystem is like a desert. A desert ecosystem also, is a habitat for a different kind of organism. When you're converting that habitat into something different, then you are actually playing with the species composition, or you are benefiting some species more than the other. So one thing that we have to keep in mind is that nature-based solution is always actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural or modified ecosystem. When we say modified ecosystem, we are also referring to urban ecosystems. To address societal challenges that leads to multiple human well-beings and also contributes to biodiversity gain. So unless, these are the three things, that your actions is to restore or manage an ecosystem, it leads to societal challenges or benefits to the people, and the third criteria is that it also contributes to biodiversity benefit. If these three criteria are met, then you can say that yes, this is a nature-based solution. And I know that this definition is not enough, so tomorrow actually we will go into the criteria and indicators using the global standards for nature-based solution that IUCN developed after consultation with more than 10,000 people across the globe. So that actually gives you very detailed analysis of how you can design, verify, and monitor a nature-based solution project. And one of the important things that I would like to emphasize about nature-based solution is scale. So many times, it's so important to look at one isolated wetland or a problem, localized problem, but to design a really effective nature-based solution, you need to look at a scale. And that's where, this example of our work comes from the Barak River Basin, which starts in the Manipur Hills. So because yesterday also some speakers were talking about transboundary water governance. So this is one of the river basin which is transboundary. So it starts in India, in the Manipur, and at the Assam border it fragments into Kushiara and Surma, and then again connects as Meghna River and meets with Ganges and Brahmaputra. So when we started working in this river, there was not even a map. So I'm talking about 2020. There was not a basin level map. And the map that you see on the top, we created it and we worked separately in India and Bangladesh. So India, we worked it with NESAC, Shillong, to develop a methodology for the land use change analysis. And NEHU, Northeastern University, did that analysis. So we got the data about how the land use is changing in the last 30 years, and we identified the hottest spot of land use changes in the basin. And we got the data from both India and Bangladesh side, and we consolidated it to create basin level maps. And what you see is that all the forest or the green area is in India, and the downstream in Bangladesh, it's the fisheries and wetland zone. And what is happening is that because of the land use changes, although you see green, a lot of those greens are plantation. So natural vegetation converted into plantation, and that has downstream impacts like increased siltation, flash flood issues, and all those things. So that's why it was important for us to understand, the land uses and how this is changing over time in the Meghna River Basin at a scale. So this was the first step. Next step was, okay, we understand the land use changes. So what I'm trying to tell here is that how, when you're thinking about a scale and nature-based solution, then how you can, approach the work. So you start with the land use changes, then we collaborated with NEHU to do the climate change analysis. Because, you might be getting a lot of climate change impact reports globally, but they're global. So how we downscale those global reports for your basin or, any area in which you are working in. So there are 35 general circulation models. So what we did is that we worked with the experts and we identified that which GCM models are most applicable to the Meghna River Basin or the Barak River Basin. And based on that, we identified the hottest spot of climate change impacts in the basin. And you see in the lower map, the red regions are basically the Kachar, Karimganj, now it is called the Sri Bhumi district. So those districts and some parts of the Meghalaya also, they are going to be, most impacted by the climate change. 5 to 6% increase in the rainfall, and all those things. So what we thought is that why don't we work with the now stakeholders to actually look at what NBS would mean in terms of addressing the flood resilience and other issues. So we have actually interacted with more than 300 stakeholders in the last 2-3 years, capacity building, and now working with Assam University to develop an NBS strategy for flood resilience in the Kachar and Sri Bhumi district. So first you start with a basin level understanding, then you go into the focus area where the impacts are happening, and then you work with the stakeholder to co-design a strategy so that it is not a top-down but a bottoms-up strategy. So quickly, these are the steps. We are at basically the step 3 right now, and we are going to start the ecosystem services assessment because we want to understand how land use change or the connection which is getting lost between the rivers and wetland is impacting the flood. So those assessments are happening, and we hope that by August 2026 we have this strategy for the 2 districts to manage flood better. And one of the important things that stakeholders are saying that no matter what you're designing, unless it benefits the people economically, it is not going to work. So one important thing about nature-based solution is that it should lead to some kind of economic benefits to the local community.
Okay.
So that was like, so tomorrow we will go deeper into it. I have 90 minutes, but very quickly some examples. So this East Kolkata wetland, because we are all talking about the role of wetlands in purifying. So this is one example which is a Ramsar site, and it is identified as the world's largest natural resource recovery ecosystem by Ramsar Secretariat. And what it is basically 260 sewage-fed fish pond, salt marshes and settling ponds through which the water passes and it gets kind of refined. And also 2 local community uses it for fish production, rice farmings and others. So what the data suggests is that 910 million liters of water is purified by the East Kolkata wetlands. and it also provides livelihood to more than 1 lakh people. So I mean, this is a very established example of nature-based solution. Now coming to Bihar, so I don't know if you know about this Ahar Piain system. So Ahar Piain system is like, yeah, pines, yes, Ahar pines. Pines are like the networks, and Ahar are like the wetlands. So what was happening was that these systems are getting lost because we have not been able to create economic value out of it. So we collaborated with ITC, which is actually working in the Munger region, and we tried to understand that what is happening at the landscape level. So what we found was that there less than 2% of the Asharganj landscape had wetlands or tree cover. More than 98% agriculture, and what it was doing was that there was less pollinator, productivity is going down, water security, flood impacts. So what we tried to do is that we wanted to create a business case for the conservation of our behind. And these are some of the results that we got in 2 pond site, that 6,000 to 8,000 Indian rupees through chestnut and other things, and almost 70,000 to 80,000 through fish cultivation annually could be generated. And it also leads to improvement in the wheat cultivation around the area. So what is important here is to recognize and economically value wetlands so that it is preserved. So this is one example. The last one from Mintu, where community-led. So when the first example was, I would say, nationally government-led. Second was more, IUCN ITC-led. This is community-led example from the Meghalaya, where actually communities came together and they realized that the masher population is going down. So they identified the breeding sites of masher. And no government intervention here. They started protecting those breeding sites. And what they saw is that, and through the communal system, they preserved the site, no fishing allowed in those breeding centers. But when people are fishing elsewhere, there was an increased fish production. And then it also came to the government, like government saw it, and government started supporting these fish sanctuaries with extra funding to develop ecotourism sites. So what I'm saying is that there are very well established examples. It is just that we need to look at the landscape and understand that what is exactly the intervention, how you engage people, what kind of policy you need to protect it for long term and generate some economic benefits out of it. So not going to the key messages, some of the products that you can look at online. You can also search the global standards, and that is it. Thank you very much.